The final challenge to the supremacy of the market is posed by the environmental crisis. Climate change is perhaps in the long term the most serious element of the triple whammy hitting the global economy. One fundamental problem is that, whereas markets work on the basis of private ownership, the environment is a public good.
Climate change is a very good example because you're dealing with the ultimate public good. It's an atmosphere which is convivial to human society. So if you take that as an example and ask the question, how do you deal with the valuing and the measuring of that thing which is upsetting the balance, carbon dioxide and the fossil fuels that we depend upon so much, you run into some interesting questions. And the most simple answer, of course, and in fact the only effective one, is that globally you have to set a cap, a limit on how much is put into the atmosphere. And you have to set it in such a way that it is in line with the science about not triggering runaway global warming effects. Now, if you can set a cap on the total amount of emissions, then you're faced with the economic, social, political decision of how you divide up our entitlements to emit. So you cap first of all, and then you have to find some way of allocating. Now, once you've done that, it's fair and can be quite effective if the markets are designed in the right way to allow market mechanisms with price signals to operate.
So there may be a place for a well-designed market in permits to emit, but only once a limit has been set to total emissions. And the environmental crisis points up another limitation of markets. They tend to be short-sighted.
What you have to remember is there are limits to what a market can do. And markets are now. Of course, you have futures markets, but generally people are looking now at markets. So you're getting an allocation now. But does it ever think about the future? And I think you don't think about the future because that matters less. And climate change is a good example of that, where we can all see that the cost of putting all the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere is causing problems for the long term. But we haven't increased, no matter what the schemes put forward, we haven't increased the price of carbon to the extent that we've sort of made people actually really stop putting that carbon into the air.
The crises of the early 21st century have reignited long-running debates about the effectiveness and role of markets, and about the other social institutions that are needed to shape and constrain markets.
What was great about Smith's vision is that it was a balanced view. It placed market in a complexity of institutions. It gave market its due, and it's very important because a lot of people didn't. And it actually, at the same time, established why it needs the help of others, why markets are as good as the company it keeps. And that requires other institutions to be developed to support the market economy and to go beyond it and sometimes to negate the market economy, and indeed, very importantly, to discipline the market economy.